Good evening. This is the San Bruno Planning Commission meeting of May 21st, 2019. It is 7 o'clock p.m. We'll go ahead and start the meeting. Take roll call, please.
Chair Mason.
Here.
Vice Chair Lagasse. She is absent and excused. Commissioner Biasotti.
Here.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Lethine.
Here.
And Commissioner Morgan.
Here.
Commissioner Lethine, will you lead us in the pledge, please?
Sure.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will move on to the approval of the minutes, the April 16, 2019 minutes. Are there any comments, corrections, suggestions before we motion?
No.
Okay. Would someone like to motion for approval?
Through the chair, prior to approval, I'll abstain since I was not here.
Okay, thank you.
I move to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition?
No.
No? And one abstention. So with that, the ayes have it. We'll move on to item 2, public comment on items not on the agenda. Is there any public comment?
No.
Seeing as how there is no public comment on items not on the agenda, we'll move on to the announcement of conflict of interest. Are there any conflicts tonight?
No.
No? Okay. Seeing as how there's none, we will move on to item 4, public hearing, A754 Pepper Drive.
Good evening, Chair Mason and the members of the Planning Commission. The first project before the Commission tonight is 754 Pepper Drive. That is a use permit 19006. The request is for to allow construction of a 1,498 square feet combined first and second floor addition that would increase the gross floor area of the existing home by greater than 50%, and exceed the permissible floor area ratio of 0.55 per the San Bruno Municipal Code. If approved and constructed, the total living area of the home would increase to 2,692 square feet, and the gross floor area of the home would be 3,099 square feet, including the 2-car garage. The subject lot measures 5,000 square feet and is currently developed with a single-family home consisting of 1,194 square feet of living area attached with a 407 square feet 2-car garage. The existing, which adds up to the existing gross floor area of the house to be 1,601 square feet. The home was constructed in 1952 and is located in the Mills Park 5 subdivision. And immediately adjacent to the subject property are single-family homes. The major finish of the house, the exterior finish is stucco finish, whereas the garage is of traditional board and batten finish, which is proposed to be removed and replaced with stucco finish to match the existing. There is a 5 feet public utility easement in the rear of the property. There are 2 heritage trees in the front yard, which are to remain. The project is categorically exempt from CEQA. This project was reviewed at the April 11, 2019 ARC meeting, and the project was forwarded to the Planning Commission with few recommendations. The recommendations are as follows. To lower the front courtyard wall, raising the sills and obscuring the glazing in the windows on the left and right elevation, and the rear deck as well. The applicant has incorporated these recommendations into the revised plan set that can be reviewed as Exhibit C with the staff report. Notices for the public hearing were mailed to the owners of the property within 300 feet on Friday, that is May 10th. The requirement for the use permit is because it would expand the development on the property by more than 50% of the existing floor area and exceed the permitted floor area ratio of 0.55. And this is to closely evaluate the neighborhood compatibility for single family residences in the neighborhood. And also to address if there are any privacy concerns because of the second story proposed addition. I would like to walk you through step by step with the addition of this property, starting from the front yard. This involves a new paving leading up to the entrance through the courtyard. There is a new courtyard wall that is proposed to be 3 feet high. There is a new extended covered and elevated porch entry proposed at the entrance that would be extended 3 feet 6 inches towards the front. This would help articulate the front elevation further. The first floor, there is a first floor addition which is in the rear of the property that comprises of new family room and a half bath. There is a stairway that leads from this family room to a brand new second story. The second story has 3 bedrooms, bath, and a rear terrace. The proposed windows on the right and left side of these new second story bedrooms look into the side yards of the neighboring property. Particularly for the left side or the south side, the proposed second floor almost meets the daylight plane requirement. Also, it is observed that the adjacent property does not have any windows from the living room looking into the side yard of the subject property. However, staff and ARC recommended windows on the left side be either obscure or higher to avoid any privacy concerns in the future. The applicant has complied with this recommendation in the revised plan set. On the right side or the north side, the second story addition is stepped back 13 feet, which minimizes the privacy concerns. However, there were neighbors from this side of the property at the ARC meeting, and they expressed concerns about expressed privacy concerns regarding the windows that would look into their living area. ARC and staff recommended that to raise the bedroom, stairwell and terrace windows on this side to minimize the privacy concerns, and the applicant has complied with those recommendations. Overall, the additional second story massing does not greatly add to the bulk if the house is looked from the front elevation, as the second story addition is 18 feet stepped back from the front. The second story would also be consistent with the scale of the neighborhood, as there are, although not many, other 2-story houses along the Pepper Drive. The proposed elevation maintains the traditional character with new vinyl framed windows for the addition that will match the existing. The proposed roof is also will also match the existing with asphalt shingle roofing. There were 2 public comments, as I mentioned earlier. A concerned resident from the neighborhood called staff and also attended the ARC meeting in April. He was specifically against the proposed additional square foot and second story. Staff explained that the applicant was within the requirement of the code and could apply for a construction of the proposed floor area and second story through a use permit. However, he still remains opposed to this project. During the ARC meeting, as I mentioned earlier, there was another neighbor who talked about the privacy concerns because of the windows. The neighbors were satisfied with the recommendation and were in support of the project. Overall, with all the recommendations incorporated in the design, the scale and the proposed home would comply with the San Bruno residential design guidelines. So staff recommends Planning Commission to approve use permit 19006 with findings 1 through 6 and conditions of approval 1 through 27. This concludes my staff presentation, and I will be happy to answer any questions. We also have with us the applicant and the owner of the property to answer any questions if the Planning Commission has. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the owner want to say anything, or the architect, before we take questions?
I just comment, it looks a nice job to me. It's a big improvement on the house. And I like to see the hip grooves and everything, the stucco and everything matching in. I think it looks great.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Ken Ibera, the architect. I do want to mention that as an architect, this project is everything you want. You want a client that wants to do a big project. You want a client that we work well with, and then when we go through the approval process, work well with staff. So I want to also thank Ruka for the communication and the completeness of getting this project approved, and then also with the members of the ARC. We've also dealt with the neighbors, and they seem very satisfied with the outcome of their concerns. I do want to mention that regarding the privacy of the windows, the only obscure glass that we were asked to provide was for the large window in the master bathroom, which is on the north side. All of the other sills are either high, they're closer to 4 feet, some are 5 feet off the ground, so they aren't real direct windows. The window that was concerning the neighbor on the south, that is a bedroom window, and it may look like a large window, but the sill is noted on the exterior as being at 44 inches, which is the maximum for egress. There is a window facing on the adjacent house at the 1-story, and I think it's very obscure because there's also a 7-foot fence on that side and some landscaping. So I think the privacy is going to be fairly secure on in both directions there. But I just wanted to comment that I'm not sure if my client wants to obscure all the windows on the second floor, as it's stated on page 2 of the staff report. We did handle the openings on the side of the covered terrace, and so as you can see, those the bottom of those openings are, I believe, at about, what did I say, 6 feet? I put a measurement there. Yeah, 5 or 6 feet. So they are prevented from people from standing on the terrace and looking down. It's mainly just to get some light off to the sides. We're happy with all the conditions of approval. I do want to state that I did contact Ruka on the condition 24, automatic sprinkler system to be required, and she provided me with staff's reasoning for that. I just like to put it in the record that the automatic sprinkler system will be required based on the fire flow calculated at the street, and that it's not required because of the addition itself, but because of the fire code. Other than that, we're happy with your approval and the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Any questions from the commissioners?
To the chair. If it was on the plan, I missed it. Just looking at thinking about the entire lot plan, is the current driveway long enough for to store cars in, or is it too short? Or actually,
You mean
not current
wide
driveway,
enough?
the end state, the driveway. Can you put
The existing,
a car in
the driveway is deep enough to accommodate a long car, and we are proposing to widen the driveway to accommodate 3 cars if needed.
Okay, so there'll be potentially room for 5 storage.
Potentially 5 off-street parking, yes.
Great, thank you.
I should
quite a bit.
mention to Commissioner Hamilton that did come up during ARC, and we did request that the lot be widened to be able to fit as many cars as possible.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Through the chair.
Go ahead.
Are you in alignment with all of the conditions of approval? Mr. Rivera, is there anything there that...
Other than what I mentioned is that I'm open for discussion, or at least to alleviate that condition that it says in the staff report that not necessarily a condition, but a result of the recommendations at architectural review, that raising the sills and obscuring the glazing in the windows on the left elevation, right elevation, and rear deck facing the side yards. So that's a lot to be obscured. And my understanding was just we were open to obscuring the glass for the bathroom window.
Through the chair? Mary Lou, I was at the ARC review as well, and as I recall, my recollection of this, though I didn't have it in my notes, was not necessarily that the sill heights were to be raised and there was to be obscure glass, but that either raising or obscuring the glass would alleviate the privacy concerns. So
Thank you.
the way I see it, the raised sills in the bedroom above the staircase and the raised sill at the terrace would be fine. And
Yeah.
then obscuring the bathroom window would be a natural.
We raised the sills in the master bedroom, which are your typical windows on each side of a bed. We eliminated about 50% of the windows in the staircase,
Right.
because those were pretty intimidating to see tall windows, even though they're going down a staircase. So we eliminated those significantly, and we raised the other sills.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, that's my recollection. Maybe staff can clarify.
Yeah, that is correct. The way it is written, maybe it seems that both they need to meet they need to have a higher sill and also obscure, but what you mentioned is correct, that they need to either have it higher sill or obscure window.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and I'm comfortable with the changes that you've made in there.
Thank
In
you.
my recollection, exactly what we had requested.
Through the chair.
And like I mentioned, we did, the homeowner has been speaking to the next door neighbor, and they're pleased, they're friends, and so that conversation will continue.
Yeah, and through the chair, it's certainly to have obscure and raised in large areas at any time, whether this project or any other project, it really is not. It's not a comfortable living environment when you're inside, particularly. And so I'm glad that you did clarify, Commissioner Lethan. It's good to clarify that piece. Thanks.
There'll be window coverings.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you.
I also wanted to mention the other resident that was at the ARC didn't feel that the project was in conformance with the character of the neighborhood. And from my recollection, there were houses in the neighborhood that were already 2 stories. So I just wanted to put that on the record for everybody to know. Any other questions from the commissioners before we open this up for public comment?
Through the chair. I do have one question, and that was that I'd recognized the heritage trees. And I know that from past projects, we have received sometimes an arborist report about how they're to be protected, and I didn't know if that would happen in this project too.
I'm familiar with protecting heritage trees, so if there's specifications that are needed to protect those, we'll take care of those. The construction won't, it'll be in the middle of the construction, but there won't be any actual construction close to the trees. But yeah, it's a good idea to put in some protective measures for those front pepper trees.
Yeah. I didn't know from staff if that was a requirement for some projects and not from others. And
The requirement is that when the heritage tree is near the construction, they need to provide an arborist report, but the heritage trees are in the front and the addition is in the rear, so they do not, the requirement was not mentioned to them. And also, both the trees are proposed to stay as is. So that is why that requirement was not mentioned to them.
Okay, thank you.
So can I clarify, I'm not, will there be a requirement? Okay.
And we'll go ahead and open this up for public comment. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing as how there's none, we will bring this back to the commission. Any other questions or suggestions before? Anybody, would someone like to motion?
Through the chair?
Yes.
If there are no other questions or comments, and I move that with the Planning Commission approve use permit 19-006 based on the findings of facts 1 through 6 and conditions of approval 1 through 27, with staff clarifying for the report the window clarification.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And any abstention? Nope. So the ayes have it, and congratulations. Thank you. We'll move on to the next item. And that's item B, fiscal year 2019-20 capital improvement program budget.
Good evening, Chair Mason, members of the Planning Commission, Michael Smith, Planning Department staff. I'm happy to present to you tonight the fiscal year 2019-2020 capital improvement program, also known as the CIP. It's a request for adoption of a resolution finding that the proposed capital improvement plan and budget for fiscal year 2019-2020 is in conformance with the City of San Bruno General Plan pursuant to California Government Code Section 65401. The Planning Commission action tonight is only to determine whether the identified 2 new public works projects and 2 existing projects that are being added to existing projects for the proposed CIP budget for 2019 are in conformance with the applicable goals and policies of the city's general plan. The action is not to evaluate the technical aspects of these projects or CEQA applicability or the merits or cost of the individual projects. A little bit about California Government Code 65401. This government code section requires the city's planning commission to make a determination that the list of the proposed public works, i.e. capital improvement projects, recommended for planning, initiation, or construction during the ensuing fiscal year is in conformance with the city's general plan prior to City Council adoption. The CIP work program covers a 5-year planning period. This is going to be from 2019 to 2024. The CIP functions as a planned work program for projects scheduled in subsequent years of the period. The capital improvement program is designed to identify, plan, and develop projects using a long-term vision for the community's facilities and infrastructure needs. The CIP provides funding for capital projects that protect, preserve, and enhance the city's infrastructure, extend the useful life of public facilities, and improve or enhance city services. As I said before, there are only 2 new projects, and then the other 2 are being added to existing projects that are already in the budget. So I'll go over those 2 new ones right now. The first one is the Regional Stormwater Capture Project at I-280 and I-380. This project will be designed to collect, detain, and treat stormwater at an open space area within the Caltrans right-of-way at a storm drain that serves portions of the Rollingwood, Crestmore, and Portola Highlands and Pacific Heights neighborhoods. The project also has the potential to supplement the city's existing groundwater, improve water quality in San Bruno Creek, and reduce flooding downstream. The city has already secured $200,000 in funding from a grant through the EPA's Water Quality Improvement Fund that can be used towards a preliminary design. And so staff took a look at the general plan and found this particular project to be in conformance with the general plan, and I'll read those to you right now. From the Health and Safety Code, we have Goal D, which is to protect sites subject to flooding hazards by implementing storm drainage improvements and by requiring building design and engineering that meets or exceeds known flood risk requirements. Also, from the health and safety element of the general plan, we have a policy number 20, which is to retain existing open space areas that serve as detention ponds in order to retain stormwater, recharge aquifers, and prevent flooding. And then lastly, from the public facilities and services element of the general plan, we have policy number 19, which is to investigate the feasibility of developing additional or enhanced sources of water supply, such as recycled water, reclaimed surface water, or enhanced groundwater recharge. Now I'm going to move on to the second project of the new CIP projects, and that is the Crestmore Canyon Slope Stability Project. In July 2018, the city hired a consultant to perform a geotechnical investigation of Crestmore Canyon in response to hillside erosion at the edge of the canyon. The investigation revealed that the erosion has a moderate risk of continuing, encroaching the upslope towards San Bruno Avenue, and provided several recommendations for stabilizing the erosion. This project would continue that work by reviewing the recommendation and selecting a design to stabilize the slope and implement drainage improvements. The project design will be implemented in fiscal year 19-20, and construction is anticipated for fiscal year 2021. So, staff again referred to the general plan and found within the health and safety code, we have goal D, which is to reduce the potential for damage from geologic hazards through appropriate site design and erosion control. And also from health and safety code, we have policy 4, which is to prevent soil erosion by retaining and replanting vegetation and by siting development to minimize grading and landform alteration. And again, these are all in the staff report. Now, for modification to existing CIP projects, we have the pavement management program. And that program was to look at different streets, which includes rehabilitation on St. Helena Avenue, Mills Avenue, Poplar Avenue, and Eastbourne Court. And then we have the 2019-2020 sidewalk repair project. And that's where the city is going around the city and repairing sidewalk, and they're doing an inventory based upon complaints received by residents. This project replaces sidewalk uplift caused by city street trees, and the priority is given to repair locations with the greatest sidewalk uplift. Again, so staff reviewed the general plan and found that in the transportation element, we have policy number 9, which is to continue the city's program of street maintenance, i.e. resurfacing, reconstructing streets every 15 years where necessary and feasible. And then from the public facilities and services element of the general plan, we have policy number 2, which is to implement a street lighting and sidewalk maintenance program for residential neighborhoods throughout the city. So again, staff has done the review, and we have found that these 2 new projects and the 2 existing projects are consistent with the city's general plan. And so attached to the staff report, we do have a resolution for your review, and that is to determine whether these projects, whether you agree with staff's analysis that they are consistent with the general plan. And this would be for, again, fiscal year 2019-2020 for the overall capital improvement budget for the next 5 years, 2019 to 2024. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions or comments.
Any questions or comments from the commission before we open this up for public comment?
And excuse me, we do have the Public Works Director here tonight to answer any questions you may have regarding those 2 new projects.
Great, thank you. Questions, comments? Okay, I'm going to open this up for public comment. Is there any public comment on this item? seeing as how there are no members of the public, we're going to close the public comment. And I actually do have just a couple, hopefully quick questions. The first question is there an actual resolution that is there a written resolution that's being signed off on?
There is a resolution, and we just realized it wasn't attached to the staff report. So
Okay.
give us a few minutes to talk and maybe ask the next question. If you have any questions for Jimmy, Tana, and we'll keep working on a solution for this.
Okay, go ahead. Maybe Jimmy, if you... I just wanted to ask how, for the pavement, first of all, these are all needed, so I'm glad that these are being prioritized. For the pavement management program, I noticed that 3 of the 4, so there's only one project on the east side, and I'm just curious how that's determined, because there are needs obviously all over San Bruno, so how do you determine that?
Sure. Good evening, Chair Mason and members of the Planning Commissioners. In regards to the SB1 funded streets, a while back ago, I would say back in 27 when the city started receiving these funds, we approached the subcommittee members, which consisted of the 2 council members, to discuss how this SB1 funding was to be used. And during the time, they decided that to use the funding for a lot of the failed street locations. So what the city staff had done is to come up with some sort of a matrix system to look at the conditions of the road. It's based on what is called a PCI, Pavement Condition Index. Looking at that, as well as locations close to schools, major facilities that the city has, and came up with a scoring system. So based on that scoring system, the matrix, and we determine, which we have a list of all the various different streets that that we need to go and improve. So that's how these streets were selected. And if you're interested in looking at the matrix, it's in one of the staff reports that the staff had already presented to the city council a while back ago. Yes.
Thank you. And then I wanted to ask, just out of curiosity, and I don't know if this is already in the budget, but what is the approximate cost for these projects?
For all
for like the regional stormwater capture project, I know that's desperately needed, and then Crestmore Canyon Slope Stability Project also. The Crestmore Canyon that's been just completely neglected, and I'm just curious, what are the costs associated to these projects?
Sure, the regional stormwater capture project is we're still starting to work on it. The city received a $200,000 grant recently, but the total project cost that's estimated right now is close to about $20 million, and that's something that the city doesn't have any funding in the stormwater to implement this project. So the thought is for the city to apply for any future grants that are available. We're also looking into partnering with possibly Caltrans, because some of their areas along 280 and the Skyline drains into the storm drain system that flows into our city. So other agencies like South San Francisco are doing that as well for their regional project in Orange Park that they're building fairly soon. So with that, they've partnered with Caltrans, and we're looking to do the same on our project, because there's just really no funding from the city to proceed with this project at all. In regards to the Crestmore Canyon, we've allocated about $300,000 in this fiscal year 1920 funds for the design purposes only. There are 3 different alternatives that were recommended as part of the geotechnical investigation. Some are a lot cheaper than others. We're trying to determine what's the best. We don't want to go back and fix this over and over again, so we want to make sure that there's whatever we select, the alternative we select would be a long-term solution. And then it varies from $200,000 to about $1 million. And so we're again, there's just really no funding for any of the storm improvements, but it's something that we're looking into, make sure that it's whatever we select is also cost effective, and that would last long term.
Okay, great. I know that Council Member Marty Medina submitted a request for the city to look into the California Department Parks and Rec grant. They have $255 million available right now, and cities can apply for more than one project, up to $8 million each. And I also sent the link over to the city manager. So I really hope the city takes advantage, because this is a really great opportunity, and they're giving up to $255 million. So that would be really great for Crestmore Canyon. So I don't have any more questions. I don't know, should we take a break or?
Hold on, we're trying to print it.
Okay.
Just give us a second. We'll go check. We can also continue the item just and let us move on to the next presentation.
Okay,
But maybe if you have any more questions for
Let's
Director Tan.
No, I don't have any more questions. I do want to make sure that there's no issue with the fact that the public didn't get to review the resolution. So let's go ahead and continue on to the next item until we figure this part out, if that's okay? Okay, great.
Through the chair,
Yes.
when you say the public, are you referring to the public here this evening or in general?
In general, just for transparency's sake, to see what exactly we're signing off on.
Okay.
But we can, thank you.
Thank you.
And very good projects, in my opinion. Thank you so much for prioritizing these. Yeah. Next item on the agenda, we'll go on to items from the staff. A, housing element and annual progress report, staff summary presentation and overview of city inclusionary housing requirements.
Michael Smith, Planning Department staff. Here today to present to you at the request of Chair Mason from a few weeks ago. Staff did a presentation to the City Council about the annual progress report for the housing element, and so I'm here today to present that to you. So the annual progress report is related to the housing element. It is required by state law. The city is required by state law to produce this report. And it tells the public and the community what we're doing as far as meeting our regional housing needs allocation, also known as the RENA. The report is due annually by April 1st of each year. This year, the reports have been somewhat updated to require a lot more information than in the past, and these new reporting requirements for 2018 include more detailed data about the exact housing units and what stage of development they're in. So there are 7 tables that make up the annual progress report. Tables A and A2, which I'm not sure if you guys saw the attachments to the City Council staff report, which was in March, on March 26th, but that was also attached to as a link through the staff, through the agenda for tonight's meeting. But tables A and A2 provide information on new residential development and various stages of the development process, and affordability levels also for those projects, for those new units. Table B provides information about the permitted housing units by affordability levels to document the city's progress in meeting the RENA. Table D provides the detailed narrative on the status and progress of the housing element program, and has the most detailed information of the report. Table E talks about different commercial development bonuses. San Bruno did not have any projects in that category this year. Table F talks about rehabbed housing units and preserved housing units. San Bruno also did not have any projects that fell into that category as well.
Pause for a second. Slide advance
Let's take a 5-minute recess while we figure out the technical difficulties. Thank you.
Whatever you, okay.
Are you ready, Michael?
Yes.
So we are back in order, and we'll continue now.
Okay.
Good, thank you.
Okay, so on the slide above right now, it lets you, this is probably the most important slide because it lets you know where we are in our arena as far as how much housing we've produced over the last few years. So starting in 2015, and this slide also lets you know how many units we're projected to have, what MTC and ABAG have said we need to have. So this is, and that's the number down in the lower right column. That's 1,036 units, and that's to the far bottom over there. And to date, we have provided building permits for 119 towards that 1036. So we're still a ways away. And it also lets you know by affordability category. You can see that there on the far right as well, in bold. And that lets you know the affordability category that we're required to have for all of the units we produce. In red, the red column is for 2018, so it's 2019, but we are reporting for 2018. And in 2018, we only had 6 units. Those 6 units were that we provided building permits for were all ADUs. Those were considered low-income units by the state. So we have a ways to go for certain. But there is hope on the horizon. On the slide now, you'll see that these are a number of projects that we have in the entitlement phase in San Bruno right now. And with the total of those projects, we would have 702 total dwelling units, and so that would go a long way in helping us meet our requirements. And just, you can see some of the project addresses there, but we have the plaza, which was 406, 418 San Mateo Avenue. That has 83 units. That would go on to 2019. I know the project has been under construction and people have seen it for some time, but that'll go on for next year's since the permits were issued this year. And then other projects we have in the pipeline include the Skyline College project with the 70 units, 111 San Bruno, which is currently in for permit review, 500 Sylvan, which is a project that came to you a few weeks ago, or maybe a month ago now. Mills Park, which is, you can see, provides the bulk of that at 425 units. 271 El Camino Real. This is down on El Camino Real where the restaurant was torn down a number of years ago. And then lastly, the Glenview Terrace project, which is 29 single-family homes up at Glenview and San Bruno Avenue. Again, this would give us 702 units towards our goal, and these projects are all in some phase, but not yet to building permit, except for that San Mateo Avenue project. So we have a lot of stuff in the pipeline, is basically what this is saying. And that's important to know because it does take time for some of these larger projects to kind of work their way through the system to actually come to fruition and get permits and stuff. It takes a number of years. So the other aspect of the reporting is we have a number of goals and policies in our housing element, similar to the ones that I just read earlier when we were doing the CIP. And so they want to see how we're doing as far as meeting those goals and policies. So it has a number of programs, and it asks us where we are in achieving some of those. And so with each project that we approve, we're at least lately, we've had to do zoning amendments to the base zoning that underlies those, and so that goes a certain way in rezoning sites so that they are capable of providing housing per our housing element. We have an affordable housing fund that we've collected from projects, and there's approximately $3.8 million in that fund. We have the affordable housing program, which I know this was also something you guys had a question about, and this is section 12230 of our zoning code. This was adopted in 2016. This is important to know. We do require 15% affordable units. Sometimes you pay a fee to get out of that. Sometimes the units are provided on site. For a for sale project, that would be 9% moderate and 6% low, and that gives you a total of 15%. This only applies to projects that are 5 units or more, so that's also important to know. And it also comes with a commercial linkage fee is also included in that. So commercial projects also have to pay a certain amount per square foot towards the affordable housing goals. The next one on there, we have the Affordable Housing Agreement Compliance, Program 3C. And that is, we have the Crossing Project, which is over across from the shops at Tanforan. There are 325 affordable rental units in that project. And right now, that is San Bruno's major contributor to affordable housing, and those are administered on site. The next one is to modify regulations to encourage affordable housing. And so with that, we see the Transit Corridors Plan was a major step forward in trying to encourage more housing in the downtown area, more density near the stations. And then lastly, we support housing organizations. Now, with our goal to try to achieve more housing in the city, there are a number of constraints. So the funding sources for affordable housing can be a constraint. For those of you who don't know, we have Section 1284, Ordinance 1284 constraints, which kind of locks in dwelling unit density. So that makes it a little bit more difficult to try to put as much housing on a site as you can in the residentially zoned areas. And then we have the SFO constraints. What that is the area underneath where the planes take off over the city. The airport does not want to see any new incompatible uses in those areas, and new housing is considered incompatible uses, and that really affects a lot of the avenues area of San Bruno. So it's important to keep these things in mind, because on the one hand, we're being asked to try to produce more housing, and it's important that everyone understands the constraints as well. New state laws related to housing. The 2018 legislative cycle, it started off with a bang because we had SB 50, that's this year. But SB 50, as you can see, was tabled to 2020. 2018 was a quiet year for major housing bills. So this concludes my presentation on the matter, and happy to answer any questions you have. I guess what some of the major takeaways that I'm hoping you guys have is just the constraints that are on us to try to produce housing, given the rules that we have. Also that it takes time. That some of this, we only produce 6 units or provided building permits for 6 units, but there's a lot in the hopper that's going through the entitlement process. And then there's and I think that pretty much covers it, but I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Through the chair? Just to confirm, because I know you said it, but I missed it, is the arena, by what year is our requirement of 1,036? Do we have to, what does the state say as far as fulfilling our arena requirements?
2024.
And those must be complete by 2024? Or just in progress?
Yeah, it's entitlement.
What does entitlement mean?
So a lot of the larger projects have to come before you to get what we call entitled, which is the approvals to build the project. Something like an ADU, for instance, you guys don't see the ADUs, and those are done more at a staff level. And then there's other things other units that can be built without necessarily requiring an entitlement. And so that's what it's talking about, is that the entitlement.
Through the chair. Thank you. So just for the folks that are listening to this at home, because I know this has come up over the years, the city's not building these units. If private developers don't come along and build these units, they're not going to happen. It's not like we have a responsibility as a city to actually build units. This is us enabling or providing the groundwork for investors and builders to come in and create these units, right?
That is
Okay.
correct. And the city took a big step in that direction when they passed the Transit Corridors Plan in 2013.
Thank you.
Through the chair, what happens if we don't meet our goal for the state?
Yeah. As of right now, there's nothing, but that could change. There have been bills floated out there to take away certain revenue sources that come from the state for cities that don't meet their housing allocation. But right now, there's nothing.
Thank you. Yeah, I read through the two links, and it was very interesting reading. And I noted that you have to maintain the affordability for 55 years and 45 years, and there's a lot of interesting information in it. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? No. I did want to ask, the 6 in 2018 was a little alarming, just because it's such a boom. I'm just curious to know why you think that it's so low here in San Bruno.
So I wouldn't say, it's a boom, but in San Bruno, we have constraints. Mm-hmm. We have Ordinance 1284, which significantly limits changes in densities on some sites. And it prohibits above-ground parking structures, which is frankly is a traditional construction method for multifamily housing. So outside of the transit corridor plan, frankly, there's no interest in building housing at this point. Inside the transit corridor plan, as you've seen with a big project like Mills Park Plaza, which is going through the process and has been for a few years, it's just a long process. And Mills Park Plaza, much like 500 Sylvan, there have been changes to the project. So what the project that is now coming forward through the process has been changed. For example, the addition of a grocery store, and when those changes happen, that takes longer time to process it. We've also had projects start the entitlement process, then sort of stop, and be put on hold, like up in Glenview. That process was completely put on hold. So we are sometimes just working on developer schedules, which again may or may not be feasible depending on the market. It's very, very expensive to build. We've sort of learned that as the city goes through the Recreation Aquatic Center. Construction escalation costs can be as high as double digits year over year, which means some projects that were financially feasible to build even a year or two ago are not financially feasible, and they just won't get the lending. So the lenders, we may entitle a project, and then they'll go to get the loans, and the lending process, sort of the first to kind of constrain in a cooling economy, which frankly we're seeing signs of, at least some initial signs, and then they will not get the funding. So with a lot of our larger entitlements, frankly, sometimes they're entitled and we're not quite sure. They will even move on to actually be constructed. The plaza is a great example of Aperture, right? It was actually entitled in October 2014. And that was sort of right when the economy was recovering. We were sort of starting the boom, and that took many years to even get to the point where they were ready to submit the permits, and then we issued the permits. And I'm happy to report they are literally moving people in as we speak. But that's a great example of where almost 5 years later, they're finally moving in people who just so you know, the leasing process is going really well, and they're frankly moving a lot of people who are really, really excited to be downtown, so that's great to see. And that may sort of be the project that draws in more interest in other builders, because from what I've heard, their leasing is going very successful. I think people are excited to be there, and so that's, I hope, sort of going to create more interest.
Thank you. I was just there. They actually said they're 50% leased up already, and most of their renters work in San Bruno. So that was great to hear. Yeah. So other than that, I just want to say excellent report. I really like how concise it was, and it really drew to the need for housing here. So as we get reports, it puts things into context, I think, and that's why I asked that it be reported on here as well, because I saw it at the city council meeting, but it really opens your eyes to what we have to do here in San Bruno as well. Any other questions or comments? Nope. Okay.
Through the chair?
Yes.
I just wanted to also say thank you for that report. After having been to the Planning Commissioner Academy with Mary Lou, a lot of these topics were addressed, and so it's really nice to see them explained at home, and I know that it takes time to put this all together. So thank you, Darcy and Michael. Appreciate it.
Looks like we'll move on to item 6. That's okay. Any last questions or comments? Okay, item 6 is a public comment on items not on the agenda, remaining comments not heard during previous comment period. And there are no members of the public in the audience. Number 7 is items from members and subcommittee reports.
Through the chair, we all received notice of our new city email accounts, which is great, and I understand the reason for them. I wanted to ask if there are plans for providing connection info from mobile devices to these accounts. The reason that I ask is that currently you just have the website, and you don't know you have a new email unless you physically think about to go check it. I also know that it's Outlook, and I know that Outlook has an app. I haven't tried using it with it because I have to use Outlook for work, so it's already kind of taken on my phone. So just wanted to ask if there was any plans.
So I will look into that and report back. Great question.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that a couple of commissioners here, Commissioner Hamilton and Commissioner, I want to say Bell, we went to a seminar recently at the San Mateo County Library, and it was about housing and the need for housing. And I just wanted to quote a statistic that they gave us, which was that in San Mateo County there were 83,000 new jobs created, but only 7,100 new units created. And so I think as we move forward, thinking about how we are going to accommodate our own workforce in San Bruno, these are numbers we need to really think about. They also said that in San Mateo County, a low-income family, a family of 4, is now considered low income when they're making $117,500 a year. That's the new low income for San Mateo County. With that said, I thought it was really informative, and I really enjoy getting those invitations. Michael sends them over to us, so thank you so much for keeping us informed. We'll go back to the resolution item.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So back to the CIP items. So I was able to speak by telephone with the city attorney, Mark Zaffarano. He would like me to advise you that you have the authority and right to vote on this item. So the public notification was provided through the agenda. That's sort of the required notification to the public, and this has been noticed as a public hearing with the item on the agenda tonight. The omission of the resolution from the published staff report is an error, and we apologize. But I want to emphasize that there was an era where governing bodies were making decisions before them where there was no internet, and there was actually an era where there were no ability to provide copies of everything in advance of the meeting. So we were able to copy print out the resolution, and should anyone in the audience need a copy, we are happy to provide that to them. And no one raised this issue before the meeting, so we had no public comment. No one has asked about this particular item, which I think leads you to be able to take a vote tonight and ensure that we went through the required process. I want to also emphasize that all of the content in the resolution is in the staff report. So there is no new content, no new information that's not replicated in the staff report. So it's sort of a repackaging of all the things that were in the staff report with the lovely whereas and this and that. But it's just confirming all the information that was in the staff report and presented to you tonight. So we are, this is somewhat time sensitive in the fact that the budget is moving forward to the City Council. So in June, they're actually having their first budget study session next week. And so I think the council is interested in getting your input on this item just so that they can move through with the budget process of the CIP.
Okay. So I'm...
Through the chair, I made it to the end.
Yeah.
There's nothing that wasn't already in the report. So
I agree.
From a transparency perspective, I don't believe that adopting this resolution is going to sneak anything by the public or anything like that. Because everything that's in here was presented and was part of the materials that have been online since last week.
I concur. And I would have said something sooner. I actually just caught it when I thought about what I'm going to sign. So I would have called you to let you know. I apologize for my error on there. But I'm comfortable moving forward as well. Okay. So would someone like to motion for approval?
Great. It's a roll call vote, I think.
Okay. Do the roll call vote. Was there a motion?
I'm waiting.
Through the chair.
Go ahead.
I move that the Planning Commission adopt Resolution 2019-04, Exhibit A, finding that the proposed capital improvement program budget for fiscal year 2019-20 is in conformance with the City of San Bruno General Plan.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? And any abstentions? No. With that, the ayes carry the votes. And we will go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 8:06 p.m. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.